Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Likky Lavji. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting Life Unscripted. I'm so grateful to have you back here on Savvy. How are you?
I'm doing incredible, Christina. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
I know. We were on about, oh my gosh, maybe 2 years ago. It feels like yesterday with all that's gone on in the world. But I'm so grateful to have you here back. You're talking about your latest book, Death by BS, which I love the name. You're like, what does that mean? Navigating your blind spots to become a better leader. And we have had quite a few people talk about leadership, but not too many people talk about the things that kind of lead us to not be the best leaders. And what are the things that get in our way? Our blind spots. But before we go to share all those yummy details from your new book, share a little bit about your backstory for anyone who might have not heard our first interview.
Sure, I'd love to do that. You know, I call myself a recovering entrepreneur. 7 businesses. I'm always looking for the next thing, and seems like I've landed where I need to be at. And what I'm doing right now is what I've been doing in the last 7 businesses, just morphed and just concise in exactly what I want to do. I've had IT companies, printing businesses, consulting and coaching businesses. And now this is where, speaking and talking about blind spots and helping coaches and teams excel is where my passion is at this point.
Wow. So when you say speaking, what about sharing stories excites you? How do you use stories to really put forth the ideas you're trying to bring the audience? And how did that come about or become a passion for you?
Well, it's interesting. You asked 3 questions in there, and I'm going to put them all together and tell you a story. How's that?
Stories are the best.
Yeah. So my storytelling started with this story, and it literally was, Bob Burg is my mentor, wonderful fellow, the author of The Go-Givers. When I sold my IT company, him and I connected, and we talked about me becoming a coach for the Go-Givers International. And he said, become a speaker with us. And I said, I can't be a speaker. And he goes, why is that? I go, well, I've got the stutter. He goes, yeah, I hear the stutter. I'm hoping you don't hear the stutter right now because it should be gone by now. Okay, good. So I had a stutter, and he goes, that's okay. Just come on down and we'll go ahead and do this conversation around coaching. So I went down. There was 10 of us in this room. The last day, he does this exercise, and he asked me to stand up. And he acknowledges me for the person that I am. And then Kathy, his partner, does very similar conversations. Third person, the fourth person, I'm in tears by this time. And Bob goes, what's going on? And I'm like, I've never heard these words before. And he goes, how about you say you never listened to these words before? I have a feeling people have told you this, but you've never heard them, like never listened to the words. I go, okay. So then the rest of the people finish. That night, I take a flight back from Orlando to Dallas. I'm talking to the passenger next to me. 2 hours into the flight, I realized I did not have a stutter talking to her. And usually, if I'm talking to a stranger, the stutter is like always on.
Wow.
So I get to DFW, and I'm walking around talking to strangers and testing my stutter, and it's gone.
Wow.
And I get home and I talk to my wife, and she goes, great. So it took 10 strangers to tell you what I've been trying to tell you for years.
Oh, tell me, why is that, Likky? I find that even my husband says this to me. I've told you that forever. Why does it take someone else to tell you that before you listen? Why is it sometimes we can hear it from like a third party we wouldn't have expected, and it finally hits home? Well,
first of all, I think, Bob Burg lays it out really well, the law of receptivity. You've got to be open to receiving. You can't just be a giver. We as human beings have a really hard time receiving good coming our way. Yeah. We're good at receiving the bad. We may not like it, but we'll take it. But when it comes good our ways, there's no way we want to hear it. So I'm just going to wrap up my story. So when that happened, I realized there's a lot of BS that was up here. And I say BS because it is. It's a lot of BS that was up here. Then I had to go do some work to figure out where the blind spot came, where that BS came from. And it was when I was 10 years old, when I landed in Canada. My teacher had asked me, share my journey of immigration. I get up there in the class and I start talking and the kids started laughing. And one kid yells, "Go back to where you came from." The next day, the life of Licky, not belonging, not good enough, life full of stutter started. 35 years, I'm holding on to a stutter because of the words, "You're not good enough." He didn't really say that, but that's what I made of it. That's the perception I created out of it. And that was the blind spot journey for me.
Wow. So tell me, I'm guessing that this is the same for everyone in that they all have their individual BS going on in the background that maybe they're not even aware of, like you weren't aware of, that keeps them, holds them back from being the most potential and the most they could give the world of themselves.
Well, my book's title says Navigating Your Blind Spots to Become a Better Leader. And in my world, every human being is a leader. You could be leading a family, you could be leading a team, you could be leading yourself, you could be leading a project, you could be leading a sports team or a congregation. You're a leader. But what gets in our way of becoming that leader is where we're not authentic to ourselves, where we're not true to ourselves, where we're not open to listening to what we are about, what our blind spots are. Mine have, my book says it all. And it's interesting. I released my book on March 31st, and I've never felt so much lightness since then. The entire world knows my story now. I have nothing to hide. It talks about me being a really crappy boss for 25 years in my IT company. It talks about me not trusting people. It talks about me being a parent that was a helicopter parent, not really even meaning to be that.
Yeah.
But that's what I had to figure out. And you asked me a question before we started this. How did I start talking about blind spots and why? Well, the impetus was my stutter going away. But as I morphed that conversation, I used to go into organizations and be a consultant and go in there and talk about sales strategy and business strategies. We would spend a year with them. And it was incredible. Transformations were happening. But I would leave. And a couple of months down the road, they revert back to the old ways.
Yeah.
And that was frustrating for me. Sure, my bank account said great because I was making money on it, but it was frustrating that people weren't transforming. So I started going back and understanding what was happening. And what really happened was the people weren't transforming, the processes were transforming. The people were not changing. The people were holding on to what they knew because they weren't ready to listen to what they didn't want to know.
Wow. So tell me, Licky, so when you are a consultant in that case, probably not just putting the policies in place, but going in and saying, okay, how do you get the people behind it, the vision, and get them to understand, get rid of whatever might be stopping them from being okay with moving forward in something that's new and changed?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if we can just look at ourselves first and see what's in our ways, the behaviors that we are the way we are, then understand that that's the impact our other people are having. I call them blind spots because other people can see them right away.
Always. Yeah, they see mine and but we can never see
But are we open to hearing it? Like I remember a couple of years ago, I was in a workshop and I asked my cohort, okay, tell me, how do I show up when I walk into a room? And I knew these people. They go, Licky, you really want to know? I go, yeah, I need to know. They go, well, you dress up. You love to dress up. I go, yeah, I do. But they said, when you walk into a room all dressed up and you don't smile. And I always thought I smiled. Now, right now, I think I'm really smiling, but I'm looking at myself and I look grumpy. So I've realized that I don't smile. And so they said is when you walk in all dressed up, not smiling, it looks like you want to own the room. And that was a huge impact for me. Now, a simple question I'll ask the leaders listening to this. Will you ask your trusted inner circle, how do I show up? And will you do anything about it?
Yeah.
And that's the impetus of change.
That is really, really impactful because sometimes you don't want to hear it. You're like, I don't know if I want to hear what people have to say about me because sometimes it's not always going to be as positive as you might think. And it's not bad. It's like, oh, okay, you walk in and you're not smiling, but you don't realize you're not smiling. You don't realize that to people, maybe it's putting them off or making them feel uncomfortable because you're looking grumpy or whatever. And that's not how you feel. But, I often say that to my husband. He looks all like serious. I'm like, are you upset? He's like, no, I'm just thinking. Yeah.
But, okay, so here's the thing. Sure, you don't have to listen to other people telling you your blind spots,
Mhm.
but can you tell me that you don't drive and don't look for blind spots?
Mhm.
Because for some reason, when we drive and walk, we're checking our blind spots all the time. We don't want to get hit or killed.
Mhm.
But in life, we're afraid to know what our blind spots are sometimes.
Yeah. What's very fascinating to me is you said on one hand, and I can attest to this, that people don't like to really take on positive. Someone says something beautiful to you. You look beautiful today, or you did a great job. No, it's okay. You do that. But on the other hand, we're also scared to find out our issues. You come across as mean, or you come off put off, whatever. Those are things we're also uncomfortable. So it's almost like we're uncomfortable to hear good and not so good.
It is. That's true. And that's where the law of receiving comes into play, right? Learn to receive whatever comes your way and be okay with it.
Yeah.
Because honestly, not many people intentionally are out there to hurt you.
Mm-mm.
And they love you, they care for you, and they're just sharing what they see.
Mm.
And I've been on this journey for a few years now, and I am so open to just tell me what you see about me because I want to learn. And I am on the hunt for blind spots every single day, every single moment. Because the more I know about myself, the more authentic I can be, and the more present I can be to people.
So is your book really a navigating process for helping each individual who reads it discover and go within to find their own blind spots?
Yeah, I hate to tell you, it's an emotional roller coaster for you. Yeah, it's going to be an up and down for you. You're going to find a lot of things about yourselves. It has some tools in it. I do some exercises in there for you to navigate your own blind spots. Now, there's an interesting concept here. There is functional blind spots and there's emotional blind spots.
Functional.
So we've been talking a lot about emotional blind spots, which are personal blind spots.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's functional blind spots. In organizations, people don't see what isn't happening right. So for example, you're in an accounting department. Something isn't working, but they don't see it. But somebody on the outside can see why it's not working. And that's a functional blind spot. But what I've realized is to fix those functional, you have to deal with the emotional first. Then you can really fix the root of the problem. Sometimes it's just communication, and you have a hard time having a hard talk because there's a lot of baggage in the way. You don't want conflict. You don't want to create that. So once there's proper, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So what I'm getting, and it's interesting. You were saying in the beginning, you'd go in there, help a company, and you come back 6 months later, and they're back to where they were before you got there, and you're like, oh my gosh, what the heck? I experienced something similar many years ago. I was really happy to help this company. They hired me to get their processes set up in accounting. I leave 6 months later, and they're back to being past due and having accounting issues. I'm like, my gosh, it's like I never showed up here. But what I'm getting from you is that really you've got to approach things from a emotional level to see where everyone's at to get them on board before you even hit the processes, the physical processes.
Exactly. And, as I've been coaching around finding people's blind spots, last year I met a partner of mine who him and I have launched a company called Blind Spots Global. And we have an assessment now that will help you find your blind spot. And to take it, anybody can take this. Just go to likkylavji.com and you can take the assessment. It will be very accurate about your potential blind spots.
Wow.
And you can start from that. For example, my style is a connector. And in there it says, I tend to start projects but not finish them. Now, I've been told that in different ways. Can you just focus? Can you just focus on this thing? I am focused on the next project. I am. That's the way I work. But what people see is he doesn't want to finish a job. He's flighty. So that's a blind spot. I didn't realize that's what people are seeing. I knew I just kept on going different things. So what I've done now is I have a great team, and I've built my team around people who can finish my vision.
Got it.
But that came to light when I took this assessment. Instead of somebody telling me, can you just finish the job? But they didn't realize that I am finishing my job. My job was to create. But you have to dig deep to figure out what those things are. Another prime example, my wife is a analyzer. I am a connector. I'm a visionary. She's a detail person. So I would say, let's go on a holiday. And next morning, I get this incredible 30-page email about the sand we're going to be stepping on and where the sand came in and how the sand is created and the hotel we're staying in, the history, and the volcano erupted 2,500 years ago. And I'm like, I'm not reading this. I'm not going to
I'm just showing up.
No, I'm not even showing up because I don't even know where we're going.
Oh.
So now that we've communicated properly, the subject line, Hawaii, 12 days, X amount of dollars. Then the 30-page email. So now we've learned to communicate better with each other. And that was a blind spot. I always thought she's not hearing me. I just want to go. We're not getting each other. We're not understanding each other. No. We just didn't understand what each other's blind spots were. And now we are, and we're communicating even better.
I love it. I love it because each of you were seeing things different. Why don't you love the fact that I put together the 30-page email to break down? And you're like, let's skip all that. I want to go straight to the... there is a quote that someone just told me last week. I think is perfect. The degree to which a person can grow is directly proportional to the amount of truth he can accept about himself without running away. Leland Val Van de Wall is the person who did that quote. And I thought it's perfect for what you're talking about right here, is that if we can really get deep and be okay with looking straight in the face of the truth about ourselves, we can really explore and expand to our fullest potential.
It definitely is true. And one of the quotes that I've been living off myself, and I created this, it says, life is about creating yourself. We know ourselves. We know thyself, but creating ourselves to be the people we want to be by being authentic. That's what we should be starting to do. Yeah. And not be scared with it. Because I think there's authentic pieces of people I meet that they're scared to let it out. Oh, people might reject it and I love that when you had that first meeting with the group and Berg, Bob Berg, that they were like giving you permission that you are an awesome person, let it out, be yourself. And it gave you permission to go out there and be your fullest, authentic self. Authenticity is such a hard way to be, right? But it isn't. We've brought this perception of ourselves. To me, blind spots literally are misinterpretation of perceptions. That's what a blind spot is. And a lot of us have scarcity mindset. Do you have a scarcity mindset by chance? Yes, at times I really do. Yeah, yep. We all do. I need more. I need to have this instead. I need to grow this way. But I relate it to a childhood event that could have happened. And the easiest one that I can remember is, given an allowance when I was 8 or 9 years old, I went to the corner store. And what do? I buy candy. I'm like, $2, buy candy. Put it in a little white bag and you buy the sours and you come home and you're having the candies and your parents go, what? You bought candy with that $2? And all of a sudden that scarcity mindset kicked in. Yeah. That one moment. That's all it took. But that paved your path for the rest of your life. It's amazing because when you're a child, you just accept all this information into yourself. Your parents say that, you're like, "Oh, I'm frivolous. Oh no, can't do that." And then for the rest of your time, you're either holding on or spending too much, which is my case. Yeah. Just no different than that kid telling me, "Go back to where you came from." I'm not good enough. I don't belong here. I had to drop out of high school. I got bullied. I went down the wrong path. All these things started happening because of that one incident. But do you really think he meant to cause all of that? He was just being a silly kid. He wanted to fit in. So he was doing what he had to do. So it's the perceptions and the misinterpretation of our perceptions that cause us where we are. Now it's our jobs to go back and find out why and shift that. And I love it. And we can.
It's never too late. Yes. And where could they do that today? Shift it, become their fullest, grandest potential. Where can they get a copy of Death by BS? How can they do that?
Amazon has it, Death by BS. Send an email to me at success@likkylavji.com, and we can get you onto our list of workshops that we do, coaching that we do around blind spots. You can go to likkylavji.com and download our assessment. And that's pretty cool because you don't get to hear somebody telling you. You just get to read it on your own time. And if you don't like it, you just crumple it up and throw it away. Nobody knows.
But you're not going to do that because everyone go out there, grow, be your fullest, grandest potential and authentic. You're going to love your life when you do. I just have to thank you again, Likky, for coming to Savvy Broadcasting and sharing your great wisdom today. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
You betcha.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.